All right. Hello, everybody. This is Nicole. And again, I'm here with an author spotlight for Beyond the Book Festival, being sponsored by the the Stark County Public Library in Knox, Indiana, and also along with the Horror Writers Association. September 30th of this year, 2023, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Central Time. We will have over 30 authors for you guys to meet and greet and buy their books, get autographs, talk to them, have a chat. It'll be fun. You guys join us. And today I have a special treat for you guys. This is Rob Witzel. Rob is the author of Super Penguin. This book, I read this last night, you guys. It is really good. It's almost like reading a comic book. It is so good. I love this. Thank you for joining us today, Rob. I appreciate it. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem. And
Thank you for
just to
having
give you
me.
guys, just to give you guys a heads up, Rob we are experiencing a little bit of technical issues. There is a little bit of delay. You'll hear Rob, but there might be a little bit of lag. So bear with us. We're working on this. Um, I met Rob at the Comic-Con in Elkhart. He was selling a Super Penguin, and he I went up to him and I was at the time I was kind of talking to authors and saying, "Hey, will you come to our book festival if I have one?" He was gracious enough to say, "Okay." So I got his contact info and he's joining us, so that's really really cool. So that brings me into my first question. When I looked over your social media accounts and your profiles and all this stuff, I have seen that you have been to so many Comic Cons. Me growing up, I huge comic book geek, loved it. Loved that kind of stuff, Batman, Superman, all that, Catwoman. So when you're a fan of that stuff, and then you go from attending these Comic Cons as a visitor as to being on the other side of the table and being a presenter or a seller or something like that. How do you feel about that? I mean, what's the dynamic in that? Does that change your whole perspective being on the inside rather than the outside?
It does and it doesn't. I'd been going to Comic Cons for probably 7 or 8 years before we started going as a vendor or Artist Alley member. What was fun for me is we would go by and see all the authors and comic book creators that were kind of similar to where I'm at now, and to go from being a fan of theirs to being a peer of theirs was really cool for me. And building relationships beyond just I'm a fan of your work to now, we're friends, and we bounce ideas off of each other, and we share, hey, this Comic Con went really well, you should come to this one,
Right.
and try to request seats next to each other and stuff like that's been really neat.
That is fun. That is fun. I attend that, and you have, when I looked at I believe it's your Facebook page or maybe it was your Instagram, and I had seen the creators that you actually had a chance to meet. I mean, the guy that did Into the Spider-Verse. I was like, really, that's that guy, and he got to meet him. That was really cool because that movie in itself was so artistic and just amazingly written and just drawn, and the way that it was filmed, it was beautiful. And I thought, wow, this guy is really creative. And then you get a chance to meet him, and yeah, you're right. When you guys talk and stuff, you kind of like bounce. Maybe I'm sure you do. You bounce ideas off each other, or how did you come up with this, or you know. You know what I'm saying when I talk about, or
Sure.
yeah. How did you come up with Super Penguin? How did you come up with the Spider-Man stuff? It's just it's neat. It's neat to be able to do stuff like that. And now when you do meet people like this, do you say, "Hey, buy a copy of my book"?
Sometimes, what I try to do as a fan and someone that, a lot of these people have been my role models, and seeing a lot of things they create and being a fan of it, I'll bring them a signed copy, and hey, thank you for inspiring me when I was a kid. Thank you for inspiring me growing up. Thank you for inspiring me now. Here's something that was kind of a ripple effect of your work, by inspiring people like me, and I share it with them. A couple months ago, I was in Chicago, and Sam Raimi was there, who directed the Spider-Man movies and
Yes.
one of my
Yes.
favorite directors. And I didn't get a chance to get a picture with him, but I got a little Spider-Man mini poster signed, and I gave him a copy of the book, and he said, "Oh my gosh, a fellow writer." And like that just melted my heart to hear this guy who I just have on a pedestal to
Right.
consider me a peer, was really, really neat. And so it's those memories. I never stop being a fan when I go to these things. I'm just a nerd that also has a table here.
Yeah, I
And so
know.
moments like that make it great.
That's awesome. Yeah, I that you do you well in my case they call it fangirling. So when I'm gushing over an author or a comic book artist or something like that, it's just I, I maybe some people think it's embarrassing or whatever, but I just think that I guess it's our way of expressing our passion for somebody else's art. And it's kind of neat. I mean, in my, it's not, I mean, I know some people like, they always say not to meet your heroes and stuff like that, but I don't necessarily think that's true because I have met quite a few people that their work, at least I have really just been a huge fan of that they've been really super cool, which is nice. It's refreshing. So yeah, I don't necessarily think that phrase is true. Maybe in some instances, I would hope not, but you never know.
Yeah,
I mean,
I say it's the opposite. Go meet your heroes. Sometimes they're going to let you down, but I found more often than not, like, I mean, you're going to double down on how much you enjoy that person, and
right,
they're usually very, very good to their fans.
right, and then yeah, intuitive and then knowledgeable. You might learn a
Yeah,
little bit off of them at the same time. So yeah, no, that's fantastic. Um, let's talk about Super Penguin for a few minutes.
sure.
Um, I like I said when I read this, um, and I'll be honest with you, the whole story from beginning to end, this to me seems like a graphic novel or a comic book. And have you ever thought about having this turned into a comic book? Because you've got the story here. You really do. I would love to see this as a comic book.
Yeah, I've fooled around with the idea. I don't have that skill set myself. If I tried to draw it, it'd be a lot of stick figures and poorly like, what is that animal? And so I kind of dabbled with it, but I for me, starting off, it wasn't a matter of like, hey, I want this to be something to sell. It really just started as kind of a project to like, hey, I want to write a book one day. I'm going to write a book. And so this was something that had been in my mind for well over a decade, and I can tell that story in a little bit. Um, but it just kind of started with I want the accomplishment of writing a book on my life checklist done. And then it turned into, well, maybe I'll, we go to these conventions anyway. Let's rent a table and see what happens. And then from there, it's like, oh man, like, hey, we should get stuffed animals. We should get stickers and buttons. And now we're starting on book 2 and already, kind of starting to promote that a little bit. And it's turned into a business, but the business was never really a part of the original plan, which I think is kind of cool when it,
Oh yeah.
unravels into that.
That's awesome. I mean, the merchandising and stuff, that's great. I mean, that's wonderful for you. I'm very excited to hear that because again, um, I if you could find an illustrator for this, I'm telling you, I think that'd be your moneymaker right there because I had the visuals in my head, but when I was thinking about this, and then also I listened to a lot of audiobooks too.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing when I started reading this, the first person that came into my head was Will Wheaton for reading this, and I thought to myself, that's really really cool. I literally like he read the story to me. I don't know what I was thinking, probably because I've read a few books or listened to a few books that he has narrated. Um, so I guess that brings me to another question. If you could have anybody narrate this story, who would you have narrate it?
Oh man, I think Wheaton would be great. I think, um, I mean, some of the classic voice actors, the Morgan Freemans of the world would be neat.
That would be fun.
Someone that got me interested in reading as a young age, and someone that does a lot of audiobooks, like LeVar Burton,
But yes,
from Star Trek and Reading Rainbow. He'd probably be my pick if I got to, name the guy. Like I'm probably
I can
picking
hear that
LeVar.
too. Yeah, I totally could hear that too. I love some of the names that you came up with. When I was listening to a podcast that you had done or an interview for a podcast, you guys were talking about the names and the way you came up with them. A couple of the main character, is Paul Frost, which is the penguin. So, the way it correlates is cute. And then Annie Freeze is a polar bear. And then you've got the mayor, who is Mayor Mooney, who is a wolf, which I thought was really funny. But my favorite was the favorite name that you would come up with was Donald Trunk, the owner of the newspaper. And I thought to myself, and the way you described him, like, is that is that a comparison to Donald Trump? Because that was really funny to me.
Yeah, coming up with characters and the names are always one of my favorite things to do. I have a lot of fun with it, and I try to do as many kind of pop culture referencey things. Kind of, even going back to like Looney Tunes or Animaniacs, things that I watched as a kid, did a lot of that. So kind of do it in book form has been silly but fun.
Oh no, it was cute. It was very, I really got a kick out of all that stuff. I thought it was really awesome. Um, and then do you I asked you this earlier, but Super Penguin with us, with our library, is rated as a juvenile fiction book. Is that the direction you wanted to go with this when you wrote it?
I kind of, if I categorize it, I kind of say it's a superhero book. I tried to write it in a way that it's safe for kids, but there are some pop culture references and some humor in there that might go over a kid's head. But some of my best friends have read it to a 5-year-old, and the 5-year-old loved it, and they loved reading it along with them. So if you like superhero stories, this one's safe for about everybody. There's not any like graphic violence or anything in it. But there's some humor in there too that I think any superhero fan would enjoy.
Oh yeah. No, yeah, it when I heard, when there's a couple lines in there where, he kicked him and it kicked him right in the head. And I would think of the old Batman where it'd go pow, or
Yeah.
that's what it reminded me of. And now speaking of that, speaking of Batman, there's a lot of references in there, not to Batman, but there's a lot of similarities. Would you say that those aspects are kind of along the lines of Bill Finger and Bob Kane's Batman?
Um, See, I grew up with a lot of my superhero culture came from cartoons on TV. And so kind of Batman the animated series, the X-Men animated series. I think a lot of the influence that I received was through those. And then I kind of morphed into comic books, kind of I think different than a lot of superhero fans went to, that started with comic books and then went to movies and TV and such. I kind of started with cartoons on Saturday morning as a 90s kid and then morphed into those. So the yeah, I think those 90s type cartoons have been the biggest influence on me.
Yeah, you mentioned Animaniacs. I haven't seen that in so long. And that show in itself was definitely interesting. It was very innovative for its time. Didn't last very
Yeah.
long, which was weird, but I thought it was really good. So, and again, I see some aspects of the Batman. I see some aspects of the Spider-Man and maybe a little Iron Man in a sense. I mean, I don't know if you get that, if you've combined any of that stuff into, I mean, we all have influences as far as everyday life. um you know uh, so and again, talking about you going into the Saturday morning cartoon stuff and watching certain things, and Batman the animated series was awesome. I watched that too as a kid. Do you think that maybe it's just a little bit of everything rolled into one?
Yeah, a lot of the characters aren't based off one character. They're kind of piecemealed. Like I'll take the attitude of a Wolverine and mix it with the powers of Superman and kind of mix things together and mold it into something new. I think a lot of inventing is that, like, you're taking things that already exist and combining them in a new way. It's hard to come up with like a brand new superpower nowadays, and a brand new, because there's so many and it's so vast of options. So just kind of tweaking a little bit, sort of making it your own. Using the animal characters for me, I think makes it very different. That there's not a penguin that's in the Avengers, so it's something new.
Right. No, it is, and I don't want to use the word cute. But that's the first thing that comes into my head when I think of this little penguin guy with his flippers and stuff, using the big sticks and being like a superhero, and they made him a little cape and stuff. I thought that was like, this is really funny. Because and in my mind I'm picturing this, like I said again, this penguin just like beating the snot out of some of these bad guys. It's really funny. Um, so rolling off that question from before, who is your favorite superhero?
It started with Wolverine. For me, my first superhero Halloween costume was Wolverine. My first action figure was Wolverine. I like the kind of tough guy that has that heart. You gotta scrape through some layers to get to it.
Right.
But I always enjoyed him. The X-Men as a group are probably like somewhere in my, if I were to create my top 10 superheroes, probably 7 to 10 of them are X-Men. Um, in the DC world, I always loved Batman. Again, kind of going back to the Kevin Conroy cartoon. And so yeah, Wolverine's always been my number one.
No, did you like, I mean, kind of throwing it off the subject a little bit, but were you satisfied with the X-Men movies that they had made over the years?
I am a horrible judge of any kind of movie because I'm just excited that there's another one. Like
Right, right.
I see fanboys and stuff online like, oh, this next Star Wars movie was terrible or this X-Men movie was bad. And I'm like, we got more X-Men. I'm just excited to be here. That's kind of my personality. Like the next Avengers movie I'm gonna love. It might be the worst rated, it might be the worst acting, cinematography might be bad, whatever. I'm excited that another superhero is on TV, and just those things bring me joy. And I could try to dissect it if I want to, but they're meant to have fun, and so I just lean into it and have fun. And so I loved every X-Men movie, even the one with the bad Ryan Reynolds CGI Deadpool thing. Like, could have been better, sure, but I had a heck of a time watching it and I loved it. And it still has a special place in my heart in my years and years of being a superhero fan.
Right. No, no, you're absolutely right. And unfortunately, there are people out there that, and don't get me wrong, we all criticize things because,
Sure.
we're not experts, but we think we are sometimes. Um, I wish that they would allow people to have or to experience it first before they give their opinion, because then if you walk into something, especially like again like the new Star Wars or something like that, if you walk into it jaded, you're going to think to yourself, well, am I going to spend the money, but do I wait for it to just go stream? Do I actually, but then again, if you are a diehard fan, you're going to go no matter what anybody says, but it's like, hey, give me a chance first, let me try it. And it goes into the whole book festival thing. And I repeat myself like 5 million times, but it's the truth. I'm very passionate about this because, again, this is us. This is me in general, from personal experience, meeting new authors and reading new material and just it, wanting to spread your guys' word out there and say, hey, read this stuff, buy this stuff if you can, because I'm telling you, not only are you supporting somebody who's put a lot of work and effort into something, or their art, but it's good. It's not, you won't regret it. So and again, a lot of these people that are coming are lesser known people, that I just want to help get the word out, that they're, everybody loves big name authors. We all do. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that, try the little guys, because the little guys, they might not have that huge contract with, Simon and Schuster or anything like that, but you know what? They got stuff that's really good. And I love the fact that you want to make this a series. And I think this is so cool because, there is a huge cliffhanger in the end, huge
Mm-hmm.
cliffhanger, and he's going on to another adventure. When you first started writing this, did you think that you were going to make a whole series out of this?
I didn't. In fact, when I very, very first started Super Penguin, I was in a high school study hall, not doing my homework, and it was just kind of a little doodle that I did that turned into a little comic strip. And my friends laughed at it, so I kept doing it, and then it kind of went off to the side. And then years later, I told my wife about this story of, hey, this is something I did with my buddies back in high school, and like, oh, you could turn that into a book. You're pretty good at writing, and probably make a story out of it. Um, the cliffhanger at the end is almost because I couldn't figure out how to end it, and I wanted to keep it going. So like, well, I'll just kind of set up another thing, like, and it'll force me to write a second book because I'll feel guilty that I didn't finish the whole story. So, yeah, I I had an outline of what I wanted, and the outline stopped about 3/4 through the book because I couldn't figure out how to end it. So I'm just, okay, I'm going to get started and the ending will come to me. And then it sort of, it closes. It's not like a total cliffhanger where things are unresolved, but kind of sets up the next one. And so just kind of as I was getting closer and closer to what I found to be the end, it just kind of popped in my brain. And so I put it on paper.
No, it's really, I love how you set it up. So it works well. It works well.
Thank you.
Um, I noticed recently that you had posted a short video or a video short of Stan Lee. He's the creator of Spider-Man. It was him telling fans about him trying to get Spider-Man off the ground. And the people he had taken it to told him no. So he decided to reclassify it, so to speak. And then when they started selling it and it became successful, then those people that told him no came back to him and said, "Hey, let's do a whole series on this." And so the advice that he gave was that, and I'm probably misquoting him here, but I thought it was funny. It said, "Don't let some idiot let you give up on your dreams."
Yeah.
I thought that was really cute, which is in true Stanley fashion. Would you agree with his advice?
Oh, 100%. And I found that sometimes that idiot telling me it's not going to work was myself. The hardest part of, I think, writing this book was the imposter syndrome. And I would tell people that, oh, yeah, I'm working on a book. And they'd always ask a question that terrified me. Oh, what's your book about? And then I'm trying to explain to other adults about this idea about a penguin wearing a cape. And I just tore it apart. And, I would downplay it and, oh, yeah, it's just a silly story and blah, blah, blah. And that probably added extra time to what it should have taken me to write it, because I would start and stop a lot, and I'd write something. I'm like, man, this is kind of stupid. No one's going to want to read this. And I'd tuck it away. And then it would take a video like that one or some other ones that I've seen that are motivating to get tossed around Facebook that would kind of re-energize me. And like, okay, yeah, I can probably do it. Maybe there's more to this. Maybe it's better than I think it is. And I found joining some writers groups and stuff on Facebook that almost all of us feel that way. And that's the crazy thing about, how many of these great writers, like we're our own worst critics sometimes.
Right.
And so if you have any idea, like, go for it. The worst that can happen is that you accomplish something major, and there's going to be people that love it. You're always going to find your audience. There's going to be people that don't like it. And there's going to be people that absolutely love it. And then the ripple effect sometimes of things that you don't see occurs too. One of my favorite examples of that is I've gotten plugged in with some kids with dyslexia that this book has sparked an interest in reading for them that they didn't have because reading was hard. It was extra hard with fighting dyslexia, and hearing a kid that, hey, I didn't like reading, but then I read your book, and then I went on and read other books, and then I went on and read more, and now I love to read. Like,
That's awesome.
I never planned on that stuff. That's not in my control at all. I just wrote a silly book about a penguin in a cape. And like, now this kid's life is all about reading, and the joy of reading's there that they didn't have before. And so for me, like, that's some of the thing that God has of where this thing's going to spin into. And you just have to kind of show up, write your book, get it out there, and then kind of watch the magic happen.
That's awesome, though. That really is awesome. And that's, making a difference in someone's life, no matter if it's one person or like 500 people or 1,000 people, whatever. It's just making that, in a sense, it's kind of like how we're put on this planet. It's just to at least try to make a difference somehow, whether how small or how big it is. So that's a great philosophy. Kind of going into that, would you, if you had, and I know you kind of explained it a little bit, but if you had, because I guess there's so many struggling authors out there. If you had, any kind of advice, besides not giving up, because like I said, we just touched on that, but is there any kind of other advice that you would give someone who is struggling? Like maybe somebody that's worried about not being published, or someone who is, has got writer's block, or they just keep hearing no. Obviously you're going to tell them not to give up, but do you have, you've been down that road at some point. Do you have any positive messages to pass along to these people?
Yeah, what I found is you have a ton of negativity that's going to pop up, and you have to kind of overbalance that with inputting as much positive stuff as you can. So if that's through religion or reading other things, for me it was a lot of like self-help slash um, autobiography stories of people that I admired and hearing their stories. So one of them was Kevin Smith,
I
one of my
love Kevin
favorite
Smith.
one of my favorite people on the planet, and he told a story about his own imposter syndrome. And I'm thinking like this guy, again, he's on a pedestal for me. I love him. He's silly. If there was anybody that didn't have imposter syndrome, it's probably Kevin Smith.
Right.
And sure enough, he dealt with it too. And it was his sister having a positive conversation with him about, hey, Kevin, you're already a director. Now you just have to go make a movie. For me, it was, I don't have to worry about officially being an author. I already am an author because I've started writing. Now I just got to go finish my book.
Right.
And I think that mindset, there are lots of other books that I read over that time. Lots of Gary Vaynerchuk speeches, lots of Steve Harvey speeches that he would give on Facebook, and just as much as you can, just flood your Facebook with positive material, what you listen to in the car, music. If you're a religious person, tap into that. Wherever you can find it, you can never have enough positive influences. So just start collecting those.
Yeah, and the funny thing and ironically enough, the most of the interviews that I've done for this book festival, that's one thing that comes up quite a bit is the level of negativity, whether it's in,
Yeah.
Our world or just like inside us. So that's really that's crazy that, here I am talking to one more person about negativity. And it's just, I hope that things are, and I guess it goes back again to trying to do one good thing, and try to make a difference in someone's life and, get rid of the negativity. There is so much of it out there today. So,
Yeah.
and if you got to do it, reading a book, if you've got to step out of your world for a little bit, I can't express reading. I mean, I'm a librarian. I can't express, reading enough to people. So, I mean, you are making a difference in these kids' lives, whether you choose to or not. So that's a great thing. That is. We are running out of time here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you one last question, and it's a big one. And I want to know why. DC or Marvel?
So mostly Marvel, I will say. And it's just kind of the team I started on. X-Men, again, I referenced that earlier, was the big thing that I was into, had all the action figures, had all that. Over the past probably 5 years or so, there's always been this kind of tribal divide between Marvel fans and DC fans. And I was always, I don't like Superman, and here's why, and I don't like this, and here's why. And then I kind of like, how silly is this? Like I I liked Batman. Like I enjoyed that cartoon. Why do I feel like I have to take a side in something? So I am not the toxic Marvel fan that only will watch Marvel stuff.
Mm,
I went and I think I've done some podcasts on movies and things with some friends and have other conversations. Like I might have been the biggest fan of the Flash over the summer, and I was, I Michael Keaton Batman just got me so excited that we got that one more time, and I'm seeing DC fans and some of the groups that I'm in like tear it apart, and like I was Team Marvel and I loved the movie. Like I adored it. I thought it was, could have been better. Yeah, maybe, but we got Michael Keaton Batman again. Like how exciting was that?
how
So
could you not love Tim Burton? I mean, come
yeah,
on. No,
I
that's
would say
awesome.
about 52% Team Marvel will be my official answer.
And that's fair. And that's fair. I mean, some people are either, one or the other. It's like yin and yang. You're either Marvel or you're DC, and there's no
Yeah.
in between. So it's nice to see that it's a little bit of both for you. You have diverse sense of taste, right? Is that what I'm looking for?
And there's a lot of great stuff out there too that's not Marvel or DC. That's
IDW,
great
yeah.
superhero materials too.
I love IDW. They've come out with quite a bit of stuff. And I love that a lot of these authors now are uh, converting their books into graphic novels. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. We've actually, as a library, have spent the last 2 or 3 years just really extending our graphic novel collection. Um, and it's fairly large. I mean, it's not as large as some people's that I've seen, but it's for us, it's fairly large, and we've got some great people working on that expansion. But the funny thing is I actually saw this a few weeks ago when I was digging, like old school novels, like Edgar Allan Poe or um,
Hmm.
uh, and of course it's not coming to my brain because I can't think, but all these old school uh, novels that kids have to read in school are like Treasure Island and stuff like that. They're making into graphic novels so kids can read them. And for the longest time, uh, graphic novels were never, they have that scholastic where they have to read books for certain points and stuff and do tests on them.
Hmm.
Um, they are now allowing graphic novels to be a part of this program. So that's great because yeah, it might be like, a couple hundred pages of drawings, but there's a story there. And a lot of kids have to do visual over just reading a book. So it's wonderful that the school systems are now opening up a little bit, and that people are actually making it a little bit easier for kids now, especially with the literacy programs, to associate drawings with pictures. That way they get a better idea, and it's still because a lot of kids don't like reading, just like you had said. Um, that that maybe if we incorporated something else that they would actually like to read more. So no, it's fantastic, and that's why I kind of when I see all your Comic-Con pictures, I'm kind of living vicariously through you because I'm like, oh, he's going to Comic-Con. I didn't get to go to E2 this or C2E2 this year, and I'm like, oh, that. So yeah, it's fun to look at your pictures. So I'm really glad that you are able to experience that kind of stuff. Because again, I'm not the only one out there that's a big, comic book geek and Star Wars and all that other stuff. If you watch years ago, it used to be whenever you watched Big Bang Theory, like that was
Hmm.
my group of friends. That's always did a set around talked about stuff like that. So it was, and I miss that kind of stuff. So when I have a chance to talk to someone who likes superheroes, it's fun for me.
Oh yeah, fun for me
Oh,
too.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I'm not as severe as some people are. Like, I couldn't give you the dynamics and aspects of, uh, Superman's powers versus, like Green Lantern or anything like that. I'm not that in depth in it, but it is kind of cool. And the Marvel series are kind of cool and all that. So it's it's something that I can actually watch with my husband and go, hey, I can watch this too with you because I like it instead of those action movies and killer movies that he likes. So, but yeah, it's fun to have something in common. But Rob, I appreciate you so much for helping us with this interview today. Again, I want to express that he will be at Beyond the Book Festival, sponsored by the Stark County Public Library on September 30th. 2023. I appreciate you giving us some shout outs on your social media pages. Thank you. And again, you guys are spreading the word for us too. That helps us out tremendously. You guys, if you get a chance, I'm telling you, the library has it now. Read Super Penguin. It is super cute, especially all you big geeks out there and you nerds, your comic book nerds. You read this because I'm telling you, this has got a great storyline to it. I loved it. And if I loved it, it's halfway decent. So, but again, Rob, thank you so much. And we will see you in a couple weeks.
Yes, we will. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you.